Community Jameel was founded by one of Saudi Arabia's most prominent families in business, the Jameels, led by Mohammed Jameel and his sons Fadi and Hassan. Through a variety of initiatives and collaborations with academic institutions, the organization promotes the use of science, data, and technology to help solve what it describes as pressing human challenges and to support governments in evidence-based policymaking. Among Community Jameel's many initiatives are the Jameel Clinic, based at the acclaimed Massachusetts Institute of Technology, better known as MIT, where scientists use AI to discover a new antibiotic, Halicin, in 2020. And the Jameel Observatory, which uses data science to mitigate the severe impacts of climate change and to protect food systems in the world's most vulnerable regions. To discuss more about Community Jameel's commitment to eradicating poverty, I sat down with the organization's director, George Richards, in Dubai. So George, how would you characterize the scale of global poverty in 2022?
I think that there are new challenges which are exacerbating already existing systemic problems around poverty. Of course, the pandemic. This is a major challenge. And there is also, I think, through climate change, growing pressures on people around the world, especially the poorest people, for example, around their food security. One of the things that we did actually as Community Jameel early on in the pandemic, so this is 2020, was we saw that there would be a long-term impact from the pandemic on people's lives. And so we worked with JPAL to launch a new regional office for Middle East North Africa region, which is in Cairo, with the mandate of course, trying to lift people out of poverty in general, but particularly focused on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And it might seem like a simple question, but why is it important to address an issue like poverty? Of course, putting malnutrition to one side, we know poverty also has a significant impact on societies and on economies. What's being done to address that, and why is it important to address?
When we think about the ultra poor, the poorest people in society, it's always been a challenge for governments and for charities and philanthropies to find effective mechanisms to lift those people out of poverty, or help them lift themselves out of poverty, and not almost wash one's hands and consign them to multi-generational poverty. And so for us, it's always been, when we come from a region which has such great potential, we really want to make sure that there are fixes, there are interventions, initiatives that can be effective, whether it's, for example, in education. Education is a great tool for unlocking human potential and helping people escape poverty. So how can we make sure that education is as effective as possible? Nutrition is another example, social protection another. And I think taken in the round, all of these mechanisms can be effective at lifting people out of their poverty.
When it comes to food security, I've spoken with experts who say that this is a crisis not just of accessibility, but of affordability. It's not the fact that there isn't food out there for people, it's the fact that people can't afford that food. How do you address a challenge around pricing?
I think these two questions of food security and poverty are deeply interlinked. If we can address food insecurity, for example, through cash payments, and that's one of the tools that the Jameel Observatory is using in Eastern Africa, in order to understand how best and how most effectively to stave off the challenge of food security, particularly among the most vulnerable, whether it's pastoralists who might not be have as strong access to financial security. This is exactly the kind of work that Jameel Observatory is doing, and moreover, which JPAL's participation in the Jameel Observatory allows us to test and evaluate scientifically, so that we can produce evidence that informs other stakeholders as they design mechanisms to tackle food insecurity at the nexus of food insecurity and poverty.
Are you concerned that poverty might become more widespread, particularly in developed economies, as we see this multitude of issues continue to play out here?
Definitely. I think that the food insecurity challenges that we see, for example, in Eastern Africa or the Middle East North Africa region, they might be acute in those parts of the world now, but there's nothing necessarily to prevent these spreading to all parts of the globe, including the global north. And actually, the work of the Jameel Index is global, and it's taking a global view and looking to inform governments, including in North America, in Europe, and so on. And likewise, the Jameel Observatory, we have a global ambition for the project, and hopefully we'll be able to work with governments around the world to ensure that data and evidence is used to inform policymaking, as I said, not just in the global south, but also in the global north.